Welcome to the latest edition of the Pets Mag podcast. Today we're looking inside one of the UK's most unique animal welfare centres, and that's Raystede in East Sussex. It's got an absolutely fascinating history, and today our guest is Gemma Price, who's their head of education. Aside from the wonderful history of Raystede, we're going to be talking about rescue pets and how they're often misunderstood, particularly rabbits and guinea pigs, which are still wrongly seen as starter pets. Without further ado, welcome, Gemma, and starting with just a little bit of background about yourself and what brought you into animal welfare.
Hello. Oh, it's lovely to be on this podcast. I get to talk about myself. I love that. And rabbits and guinea pigs, my second most favorite and third favorite subjects. I have worked at Raystede for 15 years now. What brought me here was really just my absolute love of animals. I absolutely loved anything to do with animals and nature when I was a child, and I went on to study zoology at university. I became a biology teacher for a short while, but that didn't quite satisfy my urges to be close to animals enough. But I did enjoy talking about animals. Um, and so I worked at various different places that would get me close to animals, places like Vauxhall City Farm was one of my favourite posts, working close to animals. And one day, a friend of mine left to go travelling to India, and this person had a pet terrapin, and they knew I loved animals, and asked me would I look after this thing, and I was thinking, well, sure, I can look after a terrapin. How hard can it be? And so this terrapin came to live in my house in its tank. By this point, it's about the size of I don't know, like a side plate, let's say, a side plate that you'd have your bread on at dinner. And I looked at it in this tank, and I very quickly thought that's not okay. This animal is not having a good life. This doesn't seem right at all. So I embarked on this great piece of research. Where could this terrapin have a better life? And the only place I could find in the whole of the southeast of the UK was Raystede. So I came to Raystede. They said they would take this terrapin, um, and I just encountered the most magical place. It was so wonderful to be. I just didn't know these kind of places existed back then, that you could have all these different species of animals all being cared for and rehomed and looked after by these passionate animal lovers, just like me. And I thought, I want to work here. This is where I was meant to be. And I just kept looking and looking and looking to see when jobs came up, and eventually a job did come up. And I've been here ever
Fantastic.
since.
So was that about 15 years ago, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And now recently, which is very strange, I was involved last year in opening the UK's largest licensed terrapin sanctuary. The problem is still ongoing to the
Yeah.
extent that we've had to open a sanctuary here at Racy. We dedicated one of our lakes to these poor terrapins that are
Well,
kept in
so
small tanks. And
how many terrapins have you got at the moment, roughly?
well, we've got capacity for 300. At the moment, we've just gone over the 100 mark, and we've only been open for a few months. So,
Mm,
there is a serious need out there for
mm,
for places for terrapins to live.
mm,
It's not great if you release them into the wild because they can cause damage. They also don't often survive. You see a few surviving, but generally, if they're released into
mm,
open water, having lived in a small tank, their
mm.
muscles aren't strong enough for them to swim, so they tend to drown,
Sure.
which a lot of people understand. Not a lot of people
Mhm,
understand that. So, yeah, we have a lake here where we have a kind of a shallow lake. We
mhm,
soft release
mhm,
them into
mhm,
a shallow lake and then a deeper one. They can live a better life, better
mhm.
life here.
So just going back to Raystede itself,
Yes,
it's got such a fascinating history, I hear.
it has.
Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about the founder, Mabel Raymond Hawkins?
Yes. So Mabel Raymond Hawkins, her nickname was Ray. She absolutely hated her first name Mabel. I don't know why. It's a lovely name, but her nickname was Ray. She bought a house on the Broyle in Ringmer, a bungalow, and she lived there with her sister. And she was known as the kind of animal mad person of the town. And anyone who got an injured animal, they take it to Ray, as she was known. And the legend goes that when she moved into the cottage, she woke up the next morning to find two donkeys tied to her fence. So that was the beginning of Raystede, and our sort of signature animal is still a donkey because that's how it began. She was incredibly passionate. She dedicated her life to looking after animals both here and across Europe. Um, she started with just her bungalow and her back garden, and we now have a 43-acre site where we care for over 2,000 animals a
How
year.
how big was her
Um,
back garden?
oh, just your average back garden size. I mean, very small. Yeah, it's
Some
now part of our office block where we will work out of. I'm sure she'd be really proud and pleased to know that we go on
yeah,
working from her bungalow.
someone who had the donkeys knew she was an animal lover and just decided to
Mm,
tie up the donkeys on her fence.
yeah, yeah. They just knew that she'd take care of them, which she did.
Oh,
And she continued to take care of animals until, I mean, she was wheeled out of here on
mhm.
her final day of life. She really did work to the very end. Um,
So
and she stayed close. Yeah, she stayed very close
when
to
did
to
she
to the
start?
work.
When did she start Raystad? And
So we became a official charity in 1952. So that's when she gained charitable status for her work. She was given an OBE for her work with cats in Venice, where she, back in those days, the cat population was out of control and the welfare was terrible. She went over there to try and sort it out, and did really, really well, and was awarded an OBE.
mm,
Um, so 1952 was when she officially started the charity. But she's just was dedicated to animals in her soul, it was in her bones. That's all she wanted to do.
mhm,
She was also a teacher, which has meant that the work we do here at Raystede has a big educational focus. It's why you can come and visit Raystede. You can book a ticket, you can come in and see the work we do, see the animals that we look after. And we have a very kind of vibrant education program as well, which aims to change things for animals through education.
mhm. Brilliant. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the rabbits and guinea pigs you have under your care? So how many do you have, and
Mm.
why do you think they're still seen as easy pets, and what should people really know about them?
Um, yes, the rabbit situation is really sad. So for example, just to put it into kind of context, last year we had 324 requests for people to surrender their rabbits to us. Um, we have around sort of space for about 20 rabbits, and in the entire year last year, we only managed to find homes, I think, for 19 rabbits. So if you imagine the difference between those two numbers and have a think about what happened to those animals that people didn't want anymore, but we could not find homes for no matter what we did. Um, it's quite a bleak, it paints quite a bleak picture. Uh, People are much too quick to think they can give a rabbit a good life. Um, I think they believe that rabbits have lesser needs than other animals, that they can live in a small hutch in the garden and have a contented life that way.
Mhm.
Which, when you really think about it, if you give it a lot of thought, you realize that's never going to be uh, a contented life for a sentient animal. So what we find is that lots of people get rabbits under a kind of the idea that they're going to be easy, the
Mhm,
idea they're not going to take up much space, they're not going to require much time,
mhm.
and that their children may be sort of satisfied. They'll be satisfied
Yeah,
with that pet, and maybe they'll
yeah, rather than kind of moving on to a dog, something more
yes, it more
demanding.
the with a perceived sense of
Yeah.
commitment,
Mhm,
which
mhm,
dogs are. But then what
mhm,
happens is that everyone loses interest in the rabbit quite quickly. They're not easy to read. They can't go anywhere with you. They don't actually
mhm,
really like people because as prey animals, they find us quite scary. They think that we're
mhm,
going to eat them. They've only been domesticated for 100 or so years. They haven't learnt to, I say learnt, they haven't evolved yet like dogs have to
mhm.
to communicate with us. So they can't tell us when they're in pain. They can't give us any feedback.
Perhaps they never will,
Um,
because they're prey animals, as you say.
yeah, exactly. They're a different that their ecology means
Mm.
that as a pet, when we go and pick them up and try and cuddle them, they are just thinking their alarm systems are going
Terrified.
off and
Hmm.
they're thinking, get away from this thing right away. About to be
You're
eaten because in the
gonna
wild,
be
that's what would
eaten.
happen.
Yeah, yeah.
They also absolutely hate being on their own because that for them in the wild, of course, is a death sentence too, and they feel that stress, and so they get even more defensive. And quite quickly, people lose interest, and then they think, well, this isn't right. I need to do something with this rabbit, give it a better life. Thinking back to myself with my terrapin,
Mhm.
same thing, same feeling, and they try and do the right thing and surrender to us, which is
Mhm.
the right thing to do. However, we are absolutely full, and always are. We operate at a waiting list of hundreds of rabbits. So, we have a problem. We have a big problem. Rabbits have a problem.
What about house rabbits? What do you think of house rabbits? Do you see them being surrendered? Um,
Um, we
ho-
actually encourage people to keep house rabbits,
Mhm.
um, because they can have a really good life indoors. If they're cared for properly, they can actually have a really good quality of life. So you don't necessarily have to give over half your garden to your rabbits. You can
Mhm.
give over half your house instead. If that's the resources you have uh, at your disposal,
Mhm.
a house rabbit or two, always must keep pairs, could be the answer.
So you'd really encourage people if they're not coping, or the rabbit is, say, distressed or is being,
Mm.
neglected, to, speak to a charity, speak to a rescue centre to see if they do have the capacity to take them.
Yeah, we'd
Mhm.
strongly encourage people. A, what we really want to do is to get people to acquire their rabbits from a rescue centre in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm.
So sort of getting ahead of the problem, ideally, and we're really driving home the kind of adopt, don't shop message.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're working with pet shops to do that as well. Pet shops don't want a bad name for this pet. They don't want to see animals suffer any more than we do. So pet shops are quite
Mhm.
on board with the idea of adopting rather than shopping.
Mhm.
Um, but it's kind of all the online retailers and the like that we're kind of
Mhm.
fighting against.
Mhm.
So yes, adopt, don't shop. If you do have a rabbit at home and you're thinking, gosh, this thing has a very sad life, absolutely consider surrender and try us. And you may find other places that will take rabbits on to be rehomed. Although there's not many. There's many fewer places in rescue centres than there are rabbits out there that need to come into them. So it is a bit of a problem.
Mhm.
If you've got a rabbit on its own and you're thinking, God, this thing looks like it's not having a great life, consider getting it a friend and improving its life um, in that way. We offer a bonding service. We can also advise you on how to bond because I must say it's very difficult. You can't just put another rabbit into another rabbit's hutch and expect them to get along. They're very territorial. You have to put them in a neutral space away from any resource competition. It has to be done slowly. It's a process, but we can help you with that. And you know what I'd really encourage people to do is knowing that you are going to be on a very long waiting list to get your rabbit into a rescue centre, is be prepared to give that rabbit some care and invest in a big enclosure, knowing that's its entire world. Um, you
Mhm.
can get these kind of add-on runs that you
Mhm.
can kind of create a modular housing for a rabbit so that it's got more space and it's got more freedom to choose where it goes and what it eats and
And
it just give it a slightly better quality of life.
we mentioned, people releasing terrapins into the wild. I think
Mm.
people obviously release rabbits into the wild because
Mm.
you sometimes see, say, black rabbits, different coloured rabbits compared to
Yeah.
normal wild rabbits running around. What do you think of that issue?
I mean, I think I think they're you know I can see what people are trying to do, and they're trying to give that animal a chance in its wild in its wild state. Um, but you that rabbit has just been served up on a plate
Being
to
black compared to
any predator in the
blending
local area. So, I kind of
in.
I shouldn't laugh because it's not
It's
funny for that
really
animal, but
tragic.
it's it's nature, and the likelihood is that if you release a rabbit into the wild, they have a very short life left. That said, their last moments are at least being lived as a
Running
wild
across a
rabbit,
field rather than keep.
running across a field, running for its life,
Yeah.
but at least wild and free. And is there, maybe argument that life locked in a hutch indefinitely with no care whatsoever
Mhm.
is the lesser of those two evils? But I wouldn't like to say which. I
No.
prefer
Yeah.
neither,
And
really.
just briefly, because what about guinea pigs? We talked a lot about rabbits, but guinea
Mm.
pigs, we're having the same problem with guinea pigs, or
Guinea pigs, there's less of a problem, I would say, because they are more. They're easier to bond with other guinea pigs. They are much more seen as a sort of indoor pet. They
mm,
don't need quite as much space, and you can more readily, most people will keep guinea pigs indoors. In fact, in winter, they have to come indoors, unlike rabbits who can probably withstand the cold with a bit of extra bedding, etc.
mhm,
But guinea pigs, we say you must bring inside during the winter. So I think when people, pet owners go in to have guinea pigs, they're generally thinking more of them as an inside pet,
mhm,
or at least they're prepared that they need space to keep them inside. Yeah, the space they need is less. Their demands in that sense are less. Um, they are more likely to appreciate human company than rabbits. Um, so they're all round a slightly more attractive pet,
mhm,
and a pet that people get more perceived feedback from. And so we don't have so many surrender requests for guinea pigs. So that said, our KV cabin is full at the moment with guinea pigs that have been surrendered. Um, and we really, the same message I would give for if you're thinking about getting guinea pigs, is to adopt them from a rescue centre rather than shop.
So
We
just
still
getting
think
on
that's
to that,
best.
how do people can they come people come along to the rescue centre, have a look at your animals, go through an adoption process, including a home, do you do home visits? How does it work?
So it depends on what species. We have lots of different species of animals here. We've got
Mhm,
dogs and cats, rabbits, guinea pigs. We also have horses, donkeys, alpacas, goats. We've got all the small animals, things like birds, hamsters, mice, rats, chickens. We've got a lot of variety here: tortoises and terrapins, exotic
mhm,
birds. We've got the
mhm,
largest collection of rescued exotic birds in the country. Um, our priority with all those animals is rehoming, although we recognise that with things like exotic birds, we actually would like to see an end to that practice. So we don't rehome exotic birds; we just give them the best life we can in sanctuary. The same for terrapins. Um, so it depends on which species you're interested in. If you want to adopt anything from us, your first port of call would be our website, where you would fill in a form that would give us all of your personal information, um, and registers you on our adoption system. And depending on which animal you want to adopt, the form's slightly different. So that's your first place to go.
mhm,
And then if you're, as we're talking about rabbits and guinea pigs, you can actually come to Raystede and
mhm,
you can visit our rabbitry and our cavey cabin, and you can see the animals there that are up for
mhm,
adoption. Um, but what we do ask for in the case of rabbits and guinea pigs is that you have your setup ready to go at home. You've invested in what's needed before we can reserve you any animals.
mhm,
Um, and we also have some we are quite strict about the space that you give your animals. So you must have a minimum setup size and the right life for those animals, and it has to be safe. It has to be fox proofed, and you have to send it. We don't do home visits. We trust you, but we do want to see a photo of what you've set up
okay,
ready for them.
great, great.
And we have examples of that kind of thing on site if you wanted to see the minimum requirements.
Mhm,
So for cats and for rabbits and guinea pigs, that's our process.
mhm,
For
mhm,
dogs and cats, it's slightly different. You
mhm,
get
mhm.
matched up with a
Okay.
specific animal.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. We're coming to an end of the interview today, but I just wondered if we can end on a rescue story. If you can give us one of your favorite rescue stories, Gemma.
Oh, well, as we've been talking about rabbits, there is one rabbit that sticks in my mind, called Misty. She was a dwarf rabbit, so she was very small. She was absolutely adorable, tiny little ears, very, very cute. And I met her twice on her kind of journey through through life. Um, she was surrendered to us once, went home to be the companion for a another rabbit. She lived a wonderful life as a house rabbit, and then lost her companion and bounced back in at that point to be adopted out again. Um, and we happened to be running this kind of rabbit awareness event, and somebody came in and they had just lost the partner of their rabbit, and they saw Misty and they just completely fell in love. And we were when you've seen an animal go through its rehoming journey only to come back again, it's so sad. And then to see her go out again, and she's still living with her new companion. um and rabbits are not rehomed very easily, so it's very, very pleasing when one manages to get rehomed twice. So yeah, Misty sticks in my mind. She was so sweet,
Oh,
and I would have loved to have had her myself.
that's such a lovely story. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, Gemma, and hearing all about the wonderful rescue centre that is Raystede and the fascinating history. Just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great to talk.